For this final unit of Regular Psych, we're going to take a look at modules 22, 23, 24. We're going to actually sneak a peek at module 21, which is what this particular screencast is going to have to do with. But as far as actual readings, you do not have to do any readings over module 21. 21, we're going to talk a little bit about stress and some of the effects that it can cause. And then modules 22, 23 have to do with various types of mental and behavioral disorders. So we'll cover all kinds of stuff there. And then module 24 is therapies. So if somebody has a disorder, how do you treat that disorder? And what are the different options and maybe some of the things you have to think about. So here are the readings. If you need this longer, just pause it so that you can take a look and copy this down. When we talk about stress, we're going to start by talking about stress just a little bit, and different people have different ideas of what stress is like. What a good day is for one person might not be considered a great day for somebody else. So when we talk about stress, stress is kind of an individual thing. People have different stress levels. Some people can handle all kinds of stress and not have it affect them whatsoever. And then other people, at the smallest amount of stress, they start to crumble and not exactly know what to do. So that's what we're going to look at or examine in this particular screencast, is a little bit about stress. Now, as far as what things are stressful, again, different people find different things stressful. For you guys, prom, coming up here, not too awful long away. A lot of people get stressed out over that. Final exams, something that's even closer to us right now. Anytime you have like a big test or a project that's due. For seniors, graduation. Graduation is very stressful. It's something you look forward to, but it's also very stressful. Choosing a college. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to be 7 or 8 months from now? And many of you may not know. And that's a big decision. It's a decision that, not to put more emphasis on it again, but that's a decision that could, affect the rest of your life. So yes, it's stressful. And trying to make the best decision that you can possibly make. So all of those things are stressful. Now, how much it affects somebody, that differs. Some people can take those things and just kind of play them off, and others, it's a big issue. And that's where we start talking about primary appraisal. When you are introduced or when you are confronted with a particular stress event, how do you handle that? What's the first thing you do? And I always like to tell the story of many years ago when I used to teach computer programming. A couple of us from the high school here, we went up to this little hick farm up north. I think it's called Purdue. And we got there, we wanted to talk to some of their professors to see exactly what do they expect from incoming freshmen in terms of computer programming experience. Because whatever they expected, that's what we wanted to try and teach our kids at that time. So I remember one particular professor, he was talking about how at this little hick farm, they would allow 3 times as many students as they could handle to enter the computer programming major field. Okay, so let's say that they had room, they could handle, and I'm making these numbers up, but let's say that they could handle 1,000 people who were computer majors. Well, they would admit 300 or 3,000 because they knew that a lot of people would get into it and then start dropping. And he told the story. He said the very first day of class, if you can imagine, as an incoming freshman, you walk in the door, and as you walk in the door, a professor hands you a 50 some odd page assignment and says, this is your computer programming assignment for the semester. Now you take that and you go sit down and you start looking through it at your desk. How do you react? A 50-page assignment that you look at it and it looks like gibberish to you. It's not making any sense. And the professor said literally they would have a ton of kids that would walk in, take a look at that book, and then they'd just leave it on their desk, kind of look around, get up, and walk out. And that's the last time they would see him. Because basically they were taken off. They did not like the stress that was going to cause. Now, in reality, said the program really wasn't that difficult, once you got into it, and they took it in stages. So they kind of broke it down. But the primary appraisal of a lot of people, they'd look at it and they'd say, no, thank you, I don't want any part of this. And that kind of leads us to something that we refer to as the fight or flight response. Fight or flight. In other words, are you going to fight through a situation, or are you going to flee? You're going to take off running. You may have seen this, or you may have experienced it yourself in terms of public speaking, like in speech class. Johnny's called on to give a speech, and all of a sudden it hits, and he doesn't know what to do. Okay, should he fight through it and get up there and give a speech, or does he take off and run out of the room, or does he have mom call in sick for him that day? What actually happens? And there are various physiological factors. Our body reacts to this fight or flight response. Your respiration tends to go up, your heart rate increases, your muscles become very tense because you've got a lot of blood going to the muscles in the brain to try and figure out what you're going to do. You've heard the expression that your hair stands up on end. Well, that's kind of what happens in this fight or flight response. And the adrenaline kicks in through your body because you have to react, and you have to react relatively quickly. So that's called the fight or flight response. Now, let's talk about the effects of stress. One of the things we're going to talk about in this unit is the idea that you have to figure out a way to get rid of, to relieve the stress. Everybody is going to have stress in their life, but you've got to figure out a way to deal with it, and you've got to figure out a way to kind of release that stress in some way. Because we talk about what's called psychosomatic symptoms. Psychosomatic symptoms are true ailments that you have. For example, they're pains. It could be a stomach ache or a muscle pain. It could be fatigue. It could be headache or a migraine. Some people experience insomnia where they just cannot get to sleep. It could be eating disorders, whether if you're under a lot of stress, you just can't eat, or other people eat more than they should. It could be any of those things. But the thing is, they're psychosomatic, which means that they're physical issues that your body's trying to deal with, but there's no physical cause for these symptoms. In other words, the cause is psychological. It's stress. It's how you're responding to stress. And all of these things have negative effects on the body. And in fact, they've done research and even found that your immune system, as stress increases, your immune system weakens. And so literally you will have more chance for catching colds, for getting a flu or strep throat, various things like that. There's all kinds of illnesses and ailments that you'll be more susceptible to. So you have to figure out ways to deal with stress, whether it be exercising, whether it be sleeping or relaxing or doing some other fun activity. There has to be some way that you get that out, because if you allow that stress to remain, it will be bottled up inside you and it will come out somehow. Either in some of these physical symptoms that we're talking about, okay, these muscle pains or stomach aches or headaches, things like that, or If a person's under a lot of stress and they can't find any other way to deal with it, they may start doing behavioral disorders. So, for example, we may talk about anxiety disorders or things of that nature where people are responding and their behavior changes as a result of the stress that they're under. So, key thing to remember, you have to figure out a way to get rid of and deal with the stress that you have.